if it is going to be limited, if that's even possible, obviously something outside itself has to do the limiting. Just common sense. Well, according to Jefferson, the logical candidate for that role would be the states. That is their role. As the principals to the compact, they determine when the compact has been broken. And as I say, the original intent, when you look at that crucial Virginia ratifying convention, where it's clear, we have the power to be exonerated when the federal government goes beyond its legitimate powers. I mean, that's how you go to find out what the Constitution means. You look at what the ratifiers thought they were getting themselves into. That's a general legal principle. That, for example, if I were a judge and I were looking at somebody's will, I would want to know what were the intentions of the testator. I would always want to know what were the intentions of those who drafted this. And here we see, I mean, it's as clear as day that at the very least, there is an extremely plausible line of historical argument that leads us to the validity of the principles of '98. Now, I recommend, because we've also had imposed on us the 17th Amendment to the Constitution, which I don't have time to talk about tonight, but that has, I think, crippled the states to some degree. A way to restore some of this to the states might be this. Let's suppose we had this rule enacted, that if a simple majority of the states, just 26 states, and it doesn't matter how they go about it, they could have their attorney general do it, they could have their legislature vote on it, they could have a popular referendum, the means doesn't matter. The point is, if we had 26 states say that a particular federal law was unconstitutional, then it's thereby repealed. Repealed. Now, that's not quite the same thing as nullification, which deals only with one state at a time, but it bears a family resemblance to the principles of '98, because the idea is that something outside the federal government does the limiting. Now, we have precious little influence, sometimes we feel, over our state legislatures, but we have infinitely more influence over them than we do over the U.S. Senate, which their whole career involves ignoring us completely. That's part of the job description. So there's no way almost to reach them, but we can, if we had some way in which our states could collectively have a negative, just 26 of them, we might actually repeal a federal law. I mean, and now I know that there are people in this country in the media class who think if a federal law were ever repealed, because of course, you know, this never happens, right? Something is established and then the rationale for it went away 50 years ago and now it's 100 times bigger than it ever was. They think that if we ever got rid of any federal thing, the earth would break free of its axis and go tumbling toward the sun. Well, whether that would happen or not, and I'm rather doubtful, it would happen. It could happen that we could, in fact, repeal things if the states, in fact, bolstered and amplified their constitutional role in this way. Now, people in this room, a lot of us feel like we have tried everything. We've handed out pocket constitutions, we've talked to our neighbors, we voted for this guy instead of that one, we listened to somebody give a pretty speech, and therefore we said, well, this is my man, I'll vote on the basis of the speech, and then we vote. Let me point out, by the way, one thing you have to hand it to the left about is that they make their politicians actually follow through. They sit in, they make noise, they're obnoxious, they get arrested, they make noise, and then finally the politicians say, okay, I'll do it. A lot of our people hear a pretty speech, they cast a vote, and that's the end of it. The time for pretty speeches is over. And so we have tried, we feel like everything, and yet as we try these things, we go through these motions with a sense of dreary inevitability. We know government is just going to continue to grow. Maybe faster, maybe more slowly, but it's going to continue to grow. And that's how the story has gone. That's precisely how it's gone, decade after decade. And it's how every person in this room knows it's going to continue to go unless we make a radical shift in tactics. We are done playing by the rules of MSNBC and the New York Times. We can no longer afford to reject the Jeffersonian solution, which has been lying neglected for too many years. We are going to do what we should have been doing all along. We're going to follow Jefferson and his distinguished pedigree, and if that pits us against Katie Couric, Keith Olbermann, or Mitch McConnell, then so be it. And this is picking up all over the country. Next month, at the next one of these events in Florida, in Orlando, Governor Gary Johnson will be speaking. Now, this is significant. Some of you may not know who he is. He's a former New Mexico governor, two-term governor, Republican governor in a 2-to-1 Democrat state, gets reelected as governor, while at the same time vetoing more bills than all other governors combined. So for a former and politically successful governor to speak publicly at a nullification rally, first of all, the very idea of a nullification rally is unbelievable. I mean, things are changing. Just a small example, in Connecticut, the good Tea Party folks up there managed to get the Republican nomination for Attorney General for a woman named Martha Dean. Wonderful. I've got her on my website, on the front page. If you scroll down a little, she's right there on a YouTube. Martha Dean, she's giving a speech, and she says in there that, if she's elected, she's going to join in the lawsuit against Obamacare and da-da-da-da-da. But she also supports legislative measures, and these are her words, to nullify federal laws that are carried out via powers that were not delegated to the federal government. Now, I want to say a few words specifically to some of the Tea Party folks we have here. We have some of those here, I guess? That was such a cheap applause line, wasn't it? Yeah, gee, we have any of those folks in here? I don't know. You guys have the potential to do great good, as you know. I was particularly thrilled about what happened in Utah earlier this year. You had a 3-term Republican senator, Bob Bennett, who just sort of figured, hey, I'm a Republican senator, 3 terms, I'm entitled to rule over you forever. Doesn't matter what I do, you guys are going to vote for me because you're suckers and I got an R next to my name. He was defeated by 2 Tea Party candidates in the primary. Because he voted for the bailouts. And so, my favorite thing ever, the head of the Utah Tea Party is on CNN, and the CNN reporter is just appalled at this, that people would vote on this basis. The CNN reporter says, should a man's career end because of one vote? And my beautiful answer, he said, his career will end with that vote. Perfect. Now, the problem is, that reveals that you folks are getting a little bit uppity. You don't understand what your place is. Your place is to listen to our pretty speeches, and then every time we stab you in the back, clap your hands. That's your role. But some people are waking up and saying, you know what, I got just about enough stab wounds. I think I'm going to try something a little different. So my first piece of advice, I got 2 pieces of advice. Be careful, because the DC political machine wants you safely back on the plantation. They do not want a political movement that is not in their control. They want you in their hip pocket where they think you belong. But the problem with being in somebody's hip pocket is that you're likely to be sat on. They want to neuter you into insignificance. They want to get you supporting the plastic men that they trot out to you every 2 and 4 years. Please, I am begging you, for the love of this country, don't give them the satisfaction. Forget the pretty speeches. Look at action. Second, be fearless. There are some people who are shying away from events like this because the word nullification scares them. Oh, what will the media think if I go to this event? Well, you know what? What could the media possibly say about the Tea Parties they haven't said already? Right? That horse has left the stable. You might as well just go all out at this point, right? What have you got to lose? If you're going to stand up to the political establishment, you are going to need to have a thick skin. And if you don't, this is not the line of work for you. You should do something else. If you're going to take your cues from the media and political establishment, you've lost the battle before even starting. And it's true. This is a hot topic. A lot of people won't talk about it. On the cable news shows and a lot of right-wing radio, they will not touch this subject, at least not now. As it picks up, they'll all pretend that they were driving the bandwagon all along. The only person who's been consistently fearless, of course, is Judge Andrew Napolitano. And I'm convinced that once people hear this, particularly the Tea Party, once they hear the logic of it, it makes sense and people are ready to get on board. When Michael Bolden gave that beautiful Tea Party speech on April 15th out in California. He was talking to a group who had never heard of this stuff before. They didn't know where he was going with his speech. They sat there in stunned silence. And then by 3/4 of the way through, they're cheering like crazy. Like, hey, when do we get started? What can we nullify first? This is fantastic.